Hello and welcome to the third and the Don Football Show. I am Joe. With me is my co-host Cecil Walker III. We're here to recap the wild card round of games and then preview the divisional round of games. Cecil, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm fantastic. The Bengals survived. Your Cowboys survived. Well, they didn't really survive. They routed the Bucks, but I mean, it was a good wild card round. I'm ready to talk about it, or should I say, super wild card round. And I'm excited about these divisional playoffs.
Absolutely. Me as well, Cecil. Let's just jump right into the recap because we talked about most of the coach firings last week. You know, Cliff Kingsbury bought a one-way ticket to Thailand, said he's not interested in offensive coordinator jobs, and he's just enjoying life with his girlfriend or wife or whatever. If you go on social media, you'll see all you need to see. But let's go to the first wild card game. We'll start it off with the 49ers beating the Seahawks 41-23. This game was one that was close at the half, and then the 49ers just kind of ran away with it. A lot of people were giving praise to Brock Purdy for how he played, but that first half really was he did not look good that first half, and then he had to come out, bounce back, and play well second half. If you're trying to beat the 49ers, you're going to look at that first half and see what the Seahawks were doing to try to get Brock Purdy to be off of his game. At the end of the day, the talent level of the 49ers was able to win out as the Seahawks, did better than anyone expected. They have a lot of rookies contributing and they have a bright future, but they don't have the same level of talent as the 49ers.
Right. I mean, Brock Purdy was really, off rhythm that first series or so. And then, the 49ers slowly got back into it throughout the first half. And then, I mean, they just poured it on. It's one of the things of the playoffs where, you got to kind of, if you're the underdog, you got to try to shorten the game and try to win quick. Because if you don't, usually the good team's going to come back eventually. There's just too much talent. It's too much time for them to just wake up and realize that they can pretty much beat you all around the yard. So it's kind of what in this game. I mean, Pete Carroll put together a great game plan. I mean, Brock Purdy ended up having a pretty nice stat line, but like you said, first half wasn't the best by any means. But I mean, the team's built that he doesn't really need to have the best quarter of football. He just doesn't have to. All he pretty much has to do really boneheaded, turnover worthy plays and things like that, and they'll be okay. The defense came to play in this one, and it was a hard fought win by Seattle, or a loss, I should say. And there's nothing really to be disappointed going into the offseason if you're them, because let's be honest, a lot of them bottom five, number one overall draft pick, they were pretty high in the odds going into the season. No one believed in Geno Smith, including me. I mean, I'm going to be fully honest. No one except for maybe outside the Seahawks, organization directly there in the city of Seattle, thought that this team would do anything. They were picked to be number 4 in the NFC West by a long shot, and they proved a lot of us wrong. Now, is this going to be duplicable next year? I don't think so. I think a lot of teams figured some things out, and a lot of rookies really, came on the scene and started contributing right away. There's no guarantee that all those rookies play as well next year, especially when you see such a high spike. Usually, there's the sophomore slump everyone talks about. It can be real. So overall, interested to see how the Seahawks address this offseason. And then, the 49ers are just as potent as ever.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get to their pick here in a little bit for the next round. And sees for the Seahawks, what we said they were projected to be like a top 5 pick. Guess what's better than having a top 5 pick? Making the playoffs and still having a top 5 pick because you traded with the Broncos with Russell Wilson. They watched their ex go through the toughest time with the Broncos, and they still made the playoffs. It was awesome. So kudos to Pete Carroll. The rebuild, I think that the top 5 pick will help. So 2 first-round picks overall for the Seahawks. That'll help them along the rebuild. It seems like Geno's the guy, and it's good to have the guy, and they can kind of work on that pass rush on the defensive line, get some more corners. Tariq Woolen played a really good rookie year for them, but just keep on working on it, and they could be a team that, because of that Russell Wilson trade, they're better set up for the future than they were even before it. So props to the Seahawks for having a good draft last year that they usually don't have, and also for setting themselves up well for next year. All right, the second game of Saturday night, Cecil, we had the Chargers and Jaguars. This game was the most interesting game, I think, of Wild Card Weekend. I think we can positively say that with what happened. We had the Chargers go up 27 to nothing. This was behind Trevor Lawrence throwing 4 interceptions in the first half, and Asante Samuel coming down with 3 of those interceptions. And at the time, sitting there thinking like they need to capitalize on this. They only were up 27 to nothing, and they arguably should have been up by like 35, maybe even more than 35 points. And then the second half, or I guess the end of the first half, the Jaguars get a touchdown. They flip the script. They stay committed to the running game. They still get ETN, 20 carries on the game. Trevor Lawrence seems to not really care about the 4 interceptions he threw. Comes back, and they end up having it a 37 to 28 game. Doug Peterson decides to go for 2, which I'm sitting there saying that is the dumbest thing of all time. I still will stand by that. That's dumb because you're going to make yourself get a touchdown if you miss it. You at least try to tie the game, but he decided to go for 2. They got the 2-point conversion, got the ball back, kicked a field goal to win it, and Jacksonville completed the 3rd biggest comeback victory in playoff history. It was incredible to watch. I mean, I know a lot of people maybe were out Saturday night and were like, "Oh, the Chargers are up. I'll just do whatever." If you took your eyes off of this game, you missed it, Cease. This was just incredible.
Yeah, this is a game that, I mean, it looked over in the first half. I kind of looked down. I'm just like, well, I mean, this one's done. Not many people throw 4 interceptions in a game. And records that haven't been like tied in 60 years. It's one of the worst starts in NFL playoff history. And I'm just going, man, I think he'll bounce back a little bit, but there's no way you're going to come back from that. And then the exact opposite happened. I mean, definitely the biggest playoff comeback I've ever seen. Obviously, by points, it's the 3rd biggest all time. Up to this point, the biggest one I've really seen and like experienced, as an adult is probably that Chiefs or over the Houston Texans. Bill O'Brien just kind of managed the game away, going ultra conservative, and Pat Mahomes, just did Pat Mahomes things in his really first year starting. And this is completely different than that because it wasn't, in that game you kind of knew the Chiefs were very talented. Patrick Mahomes was MVP. Texans had Bill O'Brien mismanaging things. He did, and Deshaun Watson honestly was the worst quarterback. You go into this though, I mean, you're the Chargers. You go into halftime. Pretty much all you need is a touchdown. And that's basically the kill shot. If you come out with one of those, first possession or early in the 3rd quarter, I mean, it pretty much is over. That's a lot. Quarterback in his first start, already thrown 4 interceptions. Sure, he might show some confidence. Maybe they score something, but you got to score some points still. It's a playoff game. No one's going to just pack it in and go, whatever, this is the end of our season. But they don't I mean, the play calling was pretty conservative the entire time. Justin Herbert had a decent game, but, it wasn't anything that was lighting up a score by any means. And you don't necessarily have to do that in a playoff game. The objective is to win the game. But, I mean, they were barely averaging, much per throw. It was a lot of checkdowns, a lot of slow-moving, advancing drives that just ended in punts. They miss 1 field goal, they make another, they get 3 points. And, from there, the Jaguars are pretty much scoring on every drive. They're aggressive. They're ready to go. And, I mean, it's definitely the biggest meltdown I've seen in a long time. And pretty much any sport. There are some people out there that ask, should Brandon Staley be fired after this? And that's a big question. If anyone is out there saying that Brandon Staley should probably still be the head coach of the Chargers, I don't know what you're seeing. Because it's not just this game in a vacuum. It's an entire season of bad decisions, questions about, the offensive play calling with the weapons and the talented quarterback you have in Justin Herbert. And it's just been an absolute underwhelming mess. And I've never seen it. It's 2 years in a row. Everyone talked about, they're in the big Super Bowl window. They're one of the heaviest favorites despite not really doing anything. And this happens again, and it just kept happening all season. The Mike Williams injury in the last, game of the season that he probably shouldn't have even been in. If you keep Brandon Staley, I just don't know what the message is to your organization, that we're just okay with this continuing, because it's not really going to get much better, because I don't know what else they're going to do unless they clean house, offensively and create an entire new system. Because if they just keep everybody in place now, maybe, they end up and bounce back and win a game next time. But the reality is, are they going to go win a Super Bowl when they can not get out of the first round all of a sudden? I just don't see it. I think they're getting passed by, and Charter organization's got to change something quick. The Jaguars got a madman at head coach that plays with reckless abandon, goes for two when he doesn't even need to, just because he feels like it. And I mean, it's the reason Doug Peterson was so great in Philly that one year. And it was the same exact reason he got fired, 2 years later. He is a crazy person sometimes, where he makes all these risky decisions and like they pan out for a while, but then the starts bouncing the other way. All signs point to him, and he's a very low floor for this guy. So we'll see what Doug does the rest of the playoffs. I'm interested in this Jaguars team. But yeah, the Chargers, you're kind of at a crossroads as a franchise.
You are. They decided to go the scapegoat route. Cease. They fired Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator. They fired the quarterbacks coach, and Brandon Staley is still there. So that is what they're doing for the foreseeable future. And Brandon Staley he really has kind of like bought into the oh, we can't charge her anymore. We're not going to charge her. We're gonna fight through things, and things may not go our way, but we'll bounce back and win these games, and they didn't. But also, he should be fired for the decision in Week 18 to get Mike Williams hurt. They play your starters deep into a Week 18 game, and it's one of those things where Mike Williams ends up getting hurt, and he says, "I don't want to charge her anymore. I don't want to be worried about players getting injured. I want us to go out there and have the confidence that things won't go wrong." I get it, but you had a chance to rest your starters, and for no reason, there was no benefit of them playing, and you got them hurt. That could have been the difference in the game. Having a receiver like Mike Williams opens things up for Justin Herbert. I will say Brandon Staley deserves a lot of heat. They only ran the ball 8 times after they went up 27-0. That deserves a lot of heat. So Joe Lombardi being fired, that makes sense. I just would have thought a full clearing of the staff would have probably happened at that rate. And also, Cease, obviously we saw these debates in Cincinnati a lot of Justin Herbert versus Joe Burrow. I'm still a big fan of Justin Herbert. I think he's a top 10 quarterback in the league. But some of this blame needs to be placed on him. You gotta convert. You gotta find a way to get a couple first downs. You gotta get some points in the second half, so that this isn't a problem. And I know he's dealing with Brandon Staley and Joe Lombardi as the people in charge, and he doesn't have everything to say. I'm not saying he deserves all the blame because he helped put them up 27-0, but he deserves a little bit of the blame too. So let's just keep it fair. Let's keep it honest. Still a top 10 quarterback, still a really good talent, but give better leadership who can help Justin Herbert reach that maybe top 5 status in a couple of years. All right, we'll move on to the Sunday game, Cease. We'll start off with the Dolphins and Bills, and we thought this game would be a blowout. The Bills going up against Skylar Thompson. The Dolphins had some injuries at tackle, and just Teron Armstead, and just ended up playing, I think. But at the end of the day, the Bills were able to win this game 34-31, hanging on at the end. Basically, they started off the game with a 14-0 lead after the first quarter. They were stopped a couple times. Probably, arguably, should have had a couple more touchdowns in those drives. The Dolphins, they come back 17 points second quarter, and they limit what the Bills are able to do. Their defense, I think, deserves a lot of credit for what they did. And Skylar Thompson, he was 18-45, but for a 7th-round pick who's making his first career playoff start, he made some good passes, and the receivers just kept on dropping balls. Jalen Waddle just dropped a couple of them. The Dolphins battled tough. The Bills have shown they're going to play up and down to the level of their competition this year. They're fortunate to get the win, but they got the win more importantly than anything else, which is all that needs to be said. They hung on, got the job done. Dolphins are going home. May have been a different game had they had Teddy Bridgewater or even Tua.
Yeah, at this, at the second point, at one point, they were up 17-0. You look at this score and you go, okay, I guess the Dolphins, maybe got some early points, some things bounced their way early on, and that momentum carried them. Now, the game looked dead in the water by, first quarter. We were together, we looked at the score, and we just said, yeah, this one's, it's in the bag. It's that simple, buffling, and it's going to be that. And by the end of the second quarter, it's tied off of some really boneheaded decisions, some weird turnovers, and just things that elite teams shouldn't ever do. So they let the Dolphins back in, and from there it was hang on to your hats basically because it was just Skylar Thompson suddenly became a different quarterback. The offense for the Dolphins started clicking. Their defense, who's been suspect a lot of the year, suddenly started to be really good again. And I give Mike McDaniel this. I mean, the guy literally almost coached this Dolphins team with a third string rookie quarterback taken in the seventh round to a playoff victory over the odds on Super Bowl favorite going into the season. And honestly, one of the still one or two choices to win the Super Bowl this year. So that man deserves all the credit in the world. Anybody who says Mike McDaniels is on the hot seat was an absolute idiot. We talked about it last podcast. They're same way now. There shouldn't ever be anybody questioning Mike McDaniel's ability to get the best out of this team because he sure did on Sunday. Um, the Bills, a lot of the stuff we've talked about with this team kind of started to creep up in this game. The turnover plays that didn't need to happen, forcing things, trying to do something crazy instead of just settling for the check down or the throwaway pass. Spotty inability to, connect in the red zone. The defense's secondary looked really bad at points in this game. I mean, you name it, anything that could have gone wrong with this Bills team went wrong at certain points, basically from the second quarter onward. And, luckily they had the talent in that big lead. They were able to, sustain everything by the end there. But boy, I mean, they can't play like that in another playoff game. If you do that, I mean, it's over. It's just that simple. I don't think they're going to play like that again. I think that was a big wake up call. I think they read their own press clippings, as they say, and they saw we're going to beat them by 14 points. They probably went, yeah. I mean, of course we are. It's a third string quarterback, and it didn't look like they were ready to keep driving because it's not one of those things where they weren't ready to play. They scored, but they just let the foot off the gas. So that can't happen in a playoff game. We saw it twice this weekend now, and basically it cost one team the game, and it cost another one that was a heavy favorite almost the game as well. So, I mean, great season for the Dolphins, all things considered. I mean, if they have Tua in this game and most of the season, I don't know what this team could have done. I don't know what Tua's output, in future career is at this point. This might go down as one of the biggest what-if teams in all of sports. If Tua basically career just goes south from here, or the Dolphins move on from him, it could be the biggest question mark of what would have happened, in NFL history. So it's an interesting team. It's going to be an interesting offseason for them. I don't know what they're going to do with Tua's. He's eligible, fifth year option, eligible for an extension. I don't think they have to make a decision on the fifth year option until I think it is. Is it this offseason you have to make a decision on Tua's fifth year or next year?
Next year's, I believe.
Next year. So at least they don't have to figure that out. But I mean, are they going to talk to Tua about extension? Probably not. I mean, all things considered, they don't know how much more football he can really play at this point. I mean, how many more concussions can a guy take in a year's span? So a lot of questions there, but I mean, the Bills hold on, but again, another messy win.
Yeah, that Bills messy wins definitely concerning for the Dolphins. Cease. You're right. They got to figure out Tua's thing first because remember this team forfeited their first round pick this year because of the tampering with Tom Brady. So they had traded the 49ers to get their first round pick. They traded that for Bradley Chubb, which I agreed with. Go all in if you have a chance to be in the playoffs, especially with the way Tua was playing. But they need to figure that out. One more note on the game. Mike McDaniel got a lot of criticism for not getting the play calls in on time, especially on a key play where I think, what was it, 1st and 10, or they thought they had a first down and 1st and 10, and then I got changed to a 4th and 1. The criticism is fair. He said himself he needs to get the plays in more, but I don't think people really understand how long the verbiage is on some of these. His system, which is Kyle Shanahan's San Francisco system, he sometimes has to say 34 words to get the play in. Like himself, and then he has to relay it to Skylar Thompson, and Skylar Thompson has to relay it to his team. It is very difficult. It's something they need to streamline next year. It's something they need to fix. And I think if they had maybe Tua in the game who was more familiar with things, it wouldn't have gone poorly. But with a third stringer, those are the things I think we don't really think about as much. Is like a third string quarterback is not going to be able to get the play and then relay it to the team and then also figure out what he needs to do because he's not used to playing in these games as much as a starting quarterback or even Teddy Bridgewater, who's a veteran. I would look for, although he played well, I would look for the Dolphins to get more of a, if they Tua does come back, get more of a surefire backup quarterback, because Teddy Bridgewater is very good. He's, as a backup, he's very efficient with the ball, but like, another guy who's had injury issues. You have two quarterbacks as your top two have injury issues. That's not going to lead to good things when you get put in positions like this. But Skylar Thompson did battle, and I do have a lot of respect for what he did in this game as well. Next game up on Sunday, we have the Giants beating the Vikings 31-24. Cecil, that defense from the Vikings really caught up to them. I will say Brian Daboll, Coach of the Year, give it to him now for what he did. He really took away Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen in this game. Really, really important to note that. He also, his offensive game plan was great too. Gave Daniel Jones a lot of completable passes. Daniel Jones used his legs in this one, 17 carries for 78 yards. They used his threat of running to open up the pass, which already was pretty open because the Vikings secondary has been pretty bad this year. A lot of people want to blame Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins took what the defense gave him. I think T.J. Hawkinson was the thing they were willing to let them beat them. He had 10 catches for 129 yards. In the end, I will say at the end of the game, he made a stupid decision to throw on a 4th and 8, throw the ball 4 yards downfield. That did cost him. Could have thrown it up to double coverage, Justin Jefferson at that point. I don't care. Just throw it past the first down marker. But this, to me, was more about the Giants being a good football team. And as we've said with the Vikings, don't know if they're frauds if everyone is calling them a fraud, but they're not as good as the record says they are.
No, I mean, if you go through the 13-win teams in NFL history, I mean, they're definitely one of the worst. And it's not really their fault. I mean, they won a lot of games. I mean, their schedule was easy, and they took advantage of it. And the big thing though with an easy schedule is you just keep getting cupcake wins, and you go up in the playoffs against real competition. It's gonna be a little tougher to adjust instead of teams with the advantage of squeaking in, and why so many wild card teams end up advancing over some of the favorites is because they've been in these positions all season. They've had hard losses. They've lost close games. And when they really needed to in order to advance, they found it. And the Vikings didn't really have any of that this year. They had the last-minute field goal win over the Giants and managed to have a huge comeback against the Colts. But, the Colts were really bad, and, they were within a goal. They were within a touchdown of every opponent this year, besides in this game and in the blowouts. They won every close game. So it was a weird conundrum. Again, I mean, I can't really confidently say I'm going to pick the Vikings to win the NFC North next year. I just really can't. It's really going to depend on what the other teams do, the offseason, and all those normal things. I mean, usually I see a 13-win favorite unless every free agent's leaving. I'm going to say, I mean, they're probably the favorite to win next year, but I can't say that with the Vikings. Giants, like you said, Brian Daboll, excellent game plan all the way. Daniel Jones probably made himself $50 million off of this playoff game, basically. Is the market for Daniel Jones really that big? I don't think so. I think if Daniel Jones left Brian Daboll, I mean, he would never be heard from again. I'm interested to see how much money they're willing to give him. And if I were them, I would be difficult at the negotiating table and say, we want you to be here, but let's be honest, if you're going to want to go test the market and see what you get. Because I don't see the market really, people opening up the purse strings to get Daniel Jones as their hot new quarterback. But yeah, it's working for the Giants. It's working for Dable right now. And, that Russia, very underrated and something we know never really seemed to matter before this year. Dable, what he's good at is he has literally maximized every positive trait of pretty much every player on the offense. No matter how small or overlooked it was before this year by the old coaching staffs, he just went. It's almost like a Moneyball-like approach, not when it comes to salary allocation, but more just how they're kind of playing everybody. And I'm not going to say analytics, but it's just really maximizing the value of each player and not really caring, what else happens beyond that. Daniel Jones can run. Cool. We're going to use his legs. What if he gets hurt? I mean, we'll figure it out if that happens. But the reality is, this is how we're going to win games. And he gets hurt. We're in the same position as if we do what we've been doing the last 3 years anyway. So hats off to Brian Daboll. it'll be a fun matchup this week. We'll get to the pick there, but this is another just them and the Seahawks, man. Just wonderful seasons, great jobs, and prove a lot of people wrong right off the bat.
Absolutely, Jaguars too. But I'm Brian Dable for head coach of the year for sure. And Cease, I'm with you on the Vikings. I think we might have a Lions NFC North champion next year. I mean, you got the extra pick from the Rams. That's pretty good. I think it's number 6 overall. You got their own pick. You already have good offensive line. Jared Goff proved that he can be okay if you protect him, which he's been good. And hey, they got Aiden Hutchinson as a good pass rusher. They got James Houston, who they found from Jackson State as a rookie, another good pass rusher. They picked some corners here, man. I think it might be the Lions in the NFC North with the way the other teams are moving. All right, let's go to the Sunday night game, Cease. This was one that you were at. We have a lot of enjoyment with this because the Bengals come out victorious, 24-17. But it doesn't mean we weren't on the edge of our seats during this game. We'll start it off first quarter. Evan McPherson kicks a 39-yard field goal for a 3-0 lead for the Bengals. The Bengals in the second quarter go on a long drive and have Jamar Chase catch a 7-yard touchdown pass, but then things start to turn around here. J.K. Dobbins catches a pass for Tyler Huntley, scores a touchdown. Justin Kicker gets a field goal right before half. In the third quarter, Joe Burrow puts the Bengals up 17-10 with a quarterback sneak on a 12-play, 83-yard drive. And then we had a double move by Demarcus Robinson and the Ravens and totally burnt Eli Apple and left him in the dust. And he caught the ball to make it 17-17 for the Ravens. And in the fourth quarter, the Ravens had the ball near the goal line. Sam Hubbard picks up a fumble that was caused by Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson at the goal line on a 4th and goal from the 1. And they push the ball out. Sam Hubbard runs 98 yards for a touchdown. It's called the fumble in the jungle. It's been fun play. That's gonna be remembered forever. And the Bengals hold on to win. And I think, see, this was a game that the Ravens defense really played well. The Bengals had to take what they were given to them. Joe Burrow still played well, and I would say the Ravens executed their game plan about as well as you could. And if Tyler Huntley does what he's supposed to on a quarterback sneak, which is to kind of dive down rather than jump up, the Ravens may win this game. I still think the Bengals would have pulled it out, but the Ravens would have had a much better shot. So in terms of making the Bengals earn every play, make them go on these long drives, in terms of Tyler Huntley killing the clock, the Ravens played a heck of a football game. At the end of the day, the Bengals just made more plays when it mattered, and they got the win.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say this about the Ravens. John Harbaugh put together a great game plan with everything considered. No Lamar Jackson. Tyler Huntley has shoulder soreness the entire week. He wouldn't play the week before. And I mean, to be honest, this is probably right now, I would say the Ravens were the best defense in the AFC playoffs anyway. They played really well. Ever since they got Roquan Smith this year, they were on a tear. And it showed again in this game in a great deal of the phases. They matched up real with the Bengals. They're really good at disguising blitzes, simulating pressure, and just doing a lot of things that the Bengals are not as good at dealing with. On the offense, they knew they couldn't score a lot of points. So what they try to do, control the clock, shorten the game, and just get the touchdowns, get points on key possessions. You have Justin Tucker who can kick long field goals. Get this game to a manageable point so you have an opportunity to win at the end of the game. They did that. It's unfortunate what happened at the goal line for them and their game plan. At the end of the day, they were still right there at the end to, maybe tie it up, go for 2, who knows, and get a win and shock the world kind of deal. So, well-coached team. Everyone knows that. Everybody expects that from John Harbaugh. He's a top 5 NFL coach right now. But, you might even argue, he's probably one of the, honestly, to do it right now, all things considered. The Bengals, though, they fought through it. I mean, they played the team. It's hard to beat a team in back-to-back weeks. Jonah Williams goes down in this game, their left tackle. That's a huge. You've got 3, new starting linemen than you had 3 weeks ago in this game. The defense is really the ones who won it for them. The offense scored some points here and there, but the defense, bent but didn't break. And then, if Jesse Bates doesn't, make, almost a goal line stand, 2, 3 plays before on a long run, if Von Bell doesn't sell out, on the goal line to stop them from advancing and getting it to third one, we're talking maybe different. They just go, it's a foregone conclusion. They're going to get this touchdown. Let's just give up. I mean, the Ravens very well could have won this game. But then, as I like to call it, I call it the Hubbard Yard Dash, happened. And, it's one of the greatest, Bengals playoff moments ever. I mean, it's definitely one of the most memorable moments of this playoff season, I think it will be. Longest fumble recovery in NFL history in the playoffs. And, I mean, it was awesome. It was almost in disbelief when it happened, because when we saw it live, we didn't see it from that goal line. We saw it the other way. We thought for sure, something plane broke, or somebody's knee, or something happened, because a lot of those fumble plays that were so weird looking like that usually mean that somebody was probably down. But it stood. There was no balk in the back penalty somehow. There was a questionable one there at the end. But it counts. It's awesome. And the Bengals defense, the last moments, were able to just hold on, just literally by the fingertips, and they got the win. And that's what's important. It's about surviving and advancing. Just like the Bills, I mean, you can't play like this and expect to win, playoff games and make a deep run. But you beat a division rival. It's an ugly game. You fight through it, and really, I mean, the defense is playing, lights out, really good. And they're playing complementary football. And this game and next game, it's hard to say what's going to happen, with all the offensive line injuries. But I mean, they can play. If they bring it, they can win any game against any opponent. Because it seems like somebody week to week is going to step up on one side of the ball or the other.
That seems to be, at least seems to be what's happening with the Bengals this year, Cease. Really good win for them. As you mentioned, there is a lot of praise going around for the Ravens' game plan. There's also people who say that John Harbaugh should be fired, and those people are just crazy, because you couldn't have picked a better game plan for not having Lamar Jackson and also going against Joe Burrow. I think if you're an AFC team and you want to win, yes, you need a quarterback still, but you're going to have teams like, we'll say the Titans of last year, who had the number 1 seed. You need to maybe kill the clock and keep the ball out of these quarterbacks' hands. That's exactly what the Ravens did in this game, is they kept it out of Joe Burrow's hands for the most part. He only threw for 209 yards in the game. Just an excellent game plan. It also shows, I mean, we've seen Ravens fans say, oh, we would have won if we had Lamar. I don't really get into that. It's hypothetical, whatever. Go pay the man, though. Go get the man back. Go do whatever you got to, because if you don't bring back Lamar, you could be wasting this defense, which after they traded for Roquan Smith has really been good. So don't tell me, oh, we would have won the game. Go sign him. Go get it done. That would solve a lot of your issues. So good win by the Bengals. I think they've shown they can play through adversity and everything. And the Ravens, they do. I mean, now that they got Roquan Smith, if they get Lamar Jackson back, they could be right there with the Bengals, top of the AFC North, just about every year.
Right. And we'll talk about that. I mean, the Lamar Jackson situation here. And honestly, a lot of things that seem to be going on with the Ravens locker room here. There's some weird tweets after this one, of kind of a not super, which is surprising from a Harbaugh team like this. You got, people openly just like telling Tyler Huntley, like, you did the wrong thing, and that's what caused it. You've got people pretty much, tweeting out Ravens players. If Lamar was there, we would have won that game. Lamar Jackson isn't traveling with the team. He's tweeting out his own injuries. It's a weird, it's not a good look right now for the Ravens team, in a culture-wise sort of way. I mean, how many times, a player screws up, but you don't call him out in the press conference and just be like, yep, this is what's supposed to happen. This is what he did. And that's what happens. You can't really say stuff like that as a team. You win and lose as a team. You pretty much saying, after you lose, well, we lost, but we would have won if our real quarterback was there. It's just petty stuff. Why is Lamar not on the Ravens flight there? I mean, the guy could possibly be back next week. He's a big leader for that locker room, and he doesn't even get to make the flight over. They don't even try to travel with him. It's not a good look for might be a very very ugly off-season struggle depending on how his contract bounces one way or another. And I mean, if they don't re-sign Lamar, I don't know where the Ravens team is. Sure, the defense is great, but what we got in this game will be the Ravens pretty much offense because I think they'll pretty much just go, we're going to try to win with Tyler Huntley. That's going to be their team going into next year. Sure, they get Rashad Bateman back. Maybe they get another receiver or so, but this is the core of that team without Lamar. And if that's the case, it's going to be a lot like those early 2000s Ravens teams where the defense is awesome and elite, but that offense, boy, I mean, if Jamal Lewis wasn't there, I don't know what they would do because, the Trent Dilfer, Kyler Bowler, experiment until they got Steve McNair was just an absolute failure and cost them a lot of opportunities to win multiple Super Bowls.
Yeah, and they're going to probably have to pay more than they like for Lamar and might have to guarantee more money than they want for Lamar. But if you have a Super Bowl window, which I think the defense has shown they can have, and you have a quarterback that is as talented as Lamar, you can get some damage done. So you're right. There's definitely some weird things going on with the Ravens. J.K. Dobbins even saying, I needed the ball more. Yes, I would agree with you, but you should have not said that at the same time. And just kept it internal because now everything's getting out. We have Lamar tweeting things out or putting stuff on Instagram or whatever. And it seems like there's a lot of discontent going on, and John Harbaugh will have to get everyone together and figure it out. All right, Cease, the Cowboys on Monday Night Football in the playoffs. They beat the Buccaneers 31-14. It wasn't much of a game for most of the game. The Cowboys dominated. They were up 18-0 after the first half. They missed 3 extra points from Brett Maher, as I guess they kind of say his name. They go into the second half, and they go up more. They go 24. He misses another extra point, which the third extra point that he missed was the playoff record. The fourth extra point is the most amount of extra points missed in an NFL game in history dating back to 1932. So that was good. And they're at 24, and then the Bucs start coming back a little bit, but nothing's really going. They abandoned the running game really early in this one because they haven't been able to run the ball almost at all year. And the Cowboys win. This was a game that the spread was 2.5 in favor of the Cowboys, and we were kind of saying like the Cowboys should win based on everything we've seen from the season, but it is the Cowboys in the playoffs, and they usually don't do this, and they're going up against an all-time quarterback, and the all-time quarterbacks usually just tear their hearts out. So the Cowboys get a big win, and this game, even though it's against the Bucs, who are not a very good playoff team, this is their potential. Their defense created havoc for Tom Brady, and they stopped the running game, and their offense was able to be productive. Dak Prescott has been highly criticized for what he's done this year, throwing the interceptions in the playoffs last year. We also got to give him some praise here, Cease. He played a heck of a ball game. And again, I know it's against the Buccaneers, but he had to have it, and he did do it. And the Cowboys are now advancing to the divisional round, setting up a really big matchup.
Yeah, I mean, they really never let their foot off the gas. This line, everything, the story on going this game, it was really just like it was the fear of Brady's past. It's what Tom Brady's done through his career. And I mean, the Cowboys, excellent job from the start of the game. They did not ever go ultra conservative until basically the end. They were aggressive on offense. They were trying to score points. They never really sat there and went, "We're fine with this lead," because it's Tom Brady, and the more you let Tom Brady mount a comeback, the more it's going to become a reality, honestly. Because nobody else would you be afraid of coming back from such a deficit. But I mean, as soon as he scores one touchdown and they're down by 3 possessions, suddenly they start rolling out the Super Bowl tape. They start talking about Tom Brady, and it becomes this entire narrative. Cowboys just put a stop to that. They went, Tom Brady scores, in that third quarter, they go right back down and they score. They rip their hearts out in this one. So that's a great look. Like you said, the Cowboys play like this. They got it. They got a shot at it all. Honestly, they can play like this the whole time. Now, that consistency has been questionable at times, and that's the big if here. And there's a big if with a lot of playoff teams. So again, anybody can. I feel like almost anybody that's left at this point could win a Super Bowl, basically. besides probably the Giants and the Jaguars, I'm going to be honest. Um, the 1 through 3 seeds, or I should say, the 1 through 3 seeds in the AFC, and then the Eagles, Cowboys, and Niners left. I think any of those teams honestly could win a Super Bowl. I would not be surprised if any of them do. The Cowboys have the biggest question mark to me because it is the Cowboys. And, there's all this talk about their playoff woes. Mike McCarthy, botching games. He didn't do that here. If you're the Buccaneers, I mean, Tom Brady looked uncharacteristic in this game. And, everyone's pretty much knows he's not going to be back in Tampa Bay next year. I don't think he is. Tampa Bay has known this whole time since they hitched their wagon to the Brady train that this is about trying to win a Super Bowl. They did that. The good times happened. Everyone enjoyed it. And it's going to be a hard rebuild going back from that. It always is when somebody of that magnitude leaves. The defense has been spotty this year. They couldn't get a run game. The offensive line had a lot of injuries, which helped with Brady's decline. But there are also some dumb things, especially in this game. I mean, a red zone interception that was it was a good by curse of the Cowboys, but it's the first quarter. I mean, you could make this a real football game if he scores that touchdown. The whole narrative can change really quickly. But he does some weird, looks like a throwaway pass. It's not near anyone, and it gets picked off when I don't know why he launches it like that. I don't know why he doesn't launch it to the sidelines or just honestly throw it into the ground at that point. But it's right before halftime, trying to get points. Mike Evans, he just completely, misses him. There's no communication there. And, there's this talk. A lot of teams in the NFL, it's such a QB-needy league, would be happy to have Tom Brady. But the real question is Tom Brady necessarily the piece you are away from winning a Super Bowl at this point in his career? I mean, if you're maybe the New York Jets, sure, you have everything else possible. You have a great offensive line. You signed a lot of guys, drafted a lot of guys there. But if you're a middle-tier team, and you're, let's say you're the Las Vegas Raiders, for example, where that's a hot rumor right now. If you're the Las Vegas Raiders and Tom Brady becomes your quarterback, do you honestly think that you are going to be in Super Bowl contention, in all honesty, between having to play the Chiefs twice, having to play the Chargers twice? I mean, the Broncos, who knows how they rebuild here if they get Sean Payton or something like that? I mean, that's a tough time. Tom Brady and the Raiders beating the Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs or Justin Herbert and the Chargers, just flat out. Again, if you're one piece away and you just need a quarterback that's a plus level starter, Tom Brady's your guy. But if you're someone who's mid-tier right now or kind of lower on and think Tom Brady's going to solve all your problems, you're dead wrong.
I would agree, Cease. He said he wanted to play until he was age 44 or 45. He is now 45, possibly considering hanging it up again, although it would be weird that he chose to, come back for one more year and then this was the result and possibly that was the reason why his marriage didn't work out. I mean, it would be just weird that happened, but he said he would retire when he sucked. And Tom Brady did have some good stats, but I think overall, he didn't look good last night, and part of that's line, part of that's receivers dropping passes, and a lot of it is him. And I think he will consider different teams this offseason. Maybe it's Miami again. I know they have Tua, but maybe if Tua doesn't come back, that's what the tampering thing was. Maybe it's Las Vegas with Josh McDaniels. Maybe it's San Francisco if they don't believe in Purdy as much after this weekend or after the next couple weeks. Maybe it's back to New England. I don't know, but I think this might be a time that a natural time to hang it up. We just have seen him not do it before. So the other teams, like if you're right, if you're a quarterback away, go to like the Jets. Go if he's going to go to the Raiders. Does that change anything? Probably not. That defense is so bad. So we'll see. We're going to keep tabs on it this offseason. We'll see if he's back and see if he wants to play one more year and see if he can hold up. All right, let's go to the divisional round game, Cecil. We're going to start it off on Saturday. We have the Jaguars at the Chiefs. Chiefs coming off that first round bye. The Chiefs are favored by 8.5 points, Cecil.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win because, one, it's Arrowhead. Two, it's Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. Honestly, I'm going to pick the Jaguars spread here because I've been looking up stats about this game for a little bit. The Jaguars lost by 10 points or more in 2 games this season. One was that blowout by the Lions, and the other was by 10 points to the Chiefs in Arrowhead. And I feel like that was a completely different team. It was midway through the season where they were losing a lot of games, and all from early in the year kind of fell off. This is a rematch, and I think the Jaguars took something from the game, against the Chargers in that all-time comeback. I don't think they're ever going to feel like they're out of it. I don't think they're ever going to give up. I don't think they're ever going to go, well, it is what it is. We're supposed to get blown out. I mean, you don't win a game like that last week, and then I just don't see you getting blown out. Mm-hmm. Trevor Lawrence proved something to me in that second half. And Doug Pearson's an absolute crazy person that will do everything on earth to try to win. He will pull out all the stops. People are trying to point this towards that sort of Eagles team that won the Super Bowl. It is not like that. The Eagles were number 1 seed. They just managed to have a quarterback play out of his mind, which was the one key injury. The Jags, I don't think have that much in the tank, but I think they can make this a decent game and probably lose by a touchdown. I think that's the true spread. If it was, Chiefs 7, 6.5, I'd absolutely take the Chiefs, but 8.5, I wouldn't be surprised if this line goes closer to 9.5 before kickoff. I'm going to pick the Jags the points because I think they're going to keep trying no matter what happens.
Yeah, and Cease, the Jaguars, as you said, different team since the midpoint of the season. They beat the Ravens, they beat the Titans, they beat the Cowboys, they beat the Jets, they beat the Texans, whatever. And then they beat the Titans again to make the playoffs, and now they came back against the Chargers. They beat good teams. They've won against good teams. It really did turn around their season here. I'm going Chiefs to win, too. I think that's the obvious pick here. And, Patrick Mahomes, Arrowhead, the defense does concern me, and maybe the Jaguars can take advantage of that. But I think the Chiefs still win. The Jaguars' defense, I think, can slow Patrick Mahomes down just enough. This is a team that did invest in their defense. I mean, let's talk about Josh Allen a couple of years ago as their pick on a defensive end. He's been great. Trevon Walker, their first overall pick this offseason. Whether we agree with whether they should have taken him or not, they took him, and he's a very good player. And they've got some corner help. Shaquille Griffin, is at corner. They signed him. This is a team that has kind of built this defense up. So while their offense isn't ready to compete in a shootout with the Chiefs, I think they can hold them a little bit here. And I think that they can play it within 8.5 points. So I'm going to go Chiefs to win by about a touchdown. And the Jaguars kind of keep our interest for this game, hopefully, and see how it goes.
Right. And let's talk about this, too. It's like the Jags played a lot of great teams that kind of elevated before, the playoffs started. They were in a play-in game. They won that against the Titans. And, then this Charger game happened. You look at the Chiefs back into their schedule, and pretty much most of the second half of the season, I mean, what happened? Sure, they won a lot of games, but let's look at someone. Beat the hapless Raiders team that didn't care. With Jarrett Stidham starting. They barely beat a Texans team. They had to go to OT. It's just like you look over all this, and there were some really weak wins going forward there. Sure, Pat Mahomes still got 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, all these great elite stats. And that's why they won these games. But the defense was bad. Like, just straight up bad. They played a lot of average teams way too close. And if you're thinking, I'm not saying Jaguars upset, but I think this is going to be way closer than some people are going to bet on it. And if you're somebody that's betting on a spread here, it just looks too much like it's going to be a closer game than people are putting it out to be, because you go in like the Chiefs did. Sure, they get that week's rest, but it wasn't like they were playing good football going in. It wasn't like they were playing the hottest team in the NFL. They just have been playing kind of just going through the motions. Maybe they turn it on now because of the playoffs. But they don't have Tyreek Hill. I think that's going to become much more the playoffs. Everyone's playing a lot harder. And two, again, they didn't. The biggest teams this year they needed to beat, they didn't beat. They didn't beat the Bengals. They didn't beat the Bills. And just way too many close wins against bad teams.
I would agree. So both have the Chiefs winning, but the Jaguars keeping it within the spread. Cease, let's move it to Saturday night. We have the Giants and the Eagles for the third time this season. Eagles favored by 7.5. At one point, these teams played, and the Eagles blew them out. The next time these teams played, the Eagles won by 6 against the Giants' backups. But I really think they weren't really trying to show anything. So don't know if we want to look too much into that. But Cease, Eagles favored by 7.5.
Yeah, I think the Eagles will win. Honestly, I'm going to pick the Giants with the points right now. At 7.5 is a big point of contention, right? That's kind of that perfect spread outlier where if it's 7, I think you can pick either team. If it's 6.5, I'm going Eagles, but a little bit over a touchdown victory against the Giants team who's been playing better. Has seen the Eagles 3 times, and Jalen Hurts will probably be better in this game than he was 2 weeks ago, but again, by how much? They did get blown out by the Eagles in the regular season, but it's playoff time. It's a rivalry, and everyone knows it's win or go home. There's no tomorrow, and everybody's going to play, recklessly. Brian Dable is going to pull out all the stops. I think he is the better coach, and I think Nick Sirianni has done a great deal with the Eagles in this game. But I think this is going to be one of those games where the Eagles struggle a little bit early on, and they're going to win, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout like some people are kind of putting it out to be.
I think the Eagles are going to win and cover. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a blowout. I think maybe they win by 10 or maybe 2 touchdowns. But at the end of the day, I think the Eagles needed the bye more than any other team in the playoffs. They've had so many injuries down the stretch. They have guys who are trying to rehab to come back, like Lane Johnson. It just came out Jalen Hurts is off of the injury report this week, which is really, really good news for the Eagles. I think they're going to open up the playbook a little bit. The Giants just had to play a game, so they're a little bit beat up. I'm going to go Eagles to win and cover. It says more about the rest of the Eagles got than the Giants playing well, I think is the difference here. The Giants are playing well, but I think the Eagles can cover that spread. Moving on to something.
And honestly,
oh, go ahead, Cease.
Great. This is a great one if you're betting out there. Take the little bit on the odds, especially if you're doing some kind of parlay, and tap this down to Philly -6.5. Honestly, if it's 7.5 going into the weekend, I would go down to 6.5. Take the worse odds, and that way you're not sitting there and watching a potential touchdown winning game. Because a lot of these playoff games can come to that final drive. It's just how it's kind of designed. And last thing you want is that to be the reason you don't win, even though the Eagles have it in hand. They just don't need to score any points and run the clock out. And you're stuck there because you have 7.5 points. You don't even get the push.
That is a very good piece of advice, Cease. You're right. A lot of these, for 7.5, that's a little bit different than 6.5 these days. That's how it goes. All right, on Sunday, Cease, we'll start it off with the Bengals and Bills, the game that was started and then canceled. This one is going to be in Buffalo, which is a little bit different. Buffalo is favored by 5 points. Cecil, what's going on here?
So this one's, I've been waffling a lot today about this pick, because what I'm looking at here is the Bengals are down 3 starting offensive linemen. Right tackle, obviously we know that's done. Their Leo Collins, honestly, has been one of the weaker links at that point. He's rushing. He's plus on the rush, but he's not plus in pass pro. So, honestly, I'm not that worried about that. Alex Kappa, honestly, arguably their best lineman. He's week to week right now. And Jonah Williams, their left knee, he's week to week. I think if one of them plays, I think the Bengals win, honestly. I think it's going to be one of those games where, I can't predict the score. It could be a shootout. It could be kind of one of those middling, 24-21 kind of wins, something like that. And the big reasons I'm taking away here, you know what? I'm going with the Bengals. I'm going with it because I think the Bengals played a much harder defense this last week. I think they played a hardish divisional rival. And honestly, at times, the backups held up just enough to make this offense still serviceable. And honestly, they're in a pretty similar situation to they were on their last Super Bowl run. It'll probably be a nasty game if the Bengals come out victorious, but I just feel like when it comes to that edge, I feel like Joe Burrow has it. It's going to be close in the fourth quarter. I think, honestly, they win it. I just don't like what I saw out of the Bills last week. I saw a lot of very inconsistent play. I saw them let a team with a third string quarterback back into a game on some really fluky, dumb stuff to end a half. And then just from there, just nothing really special happened. Their secondary is in trouble right now. Tre'Davious White does not look anywhere near where he needs to be this time of year to be put on those one-on-ones. Um, I know, this Bengals Bills game going at Paul Brown that got canceled doesn't matter. It's thrown out the window. But I mean, it was a lot of momentum towards the Bengals. I feel like the Bengals are still pretty upset about what happened, as evidenced by Joe Burrow's interview yesterday. And I think they want to win this game. I think they're going to. It's one of those games where the Bengals are going to be, obviously logic says they're going to lose it, but to say it's a 5-point spread, and I'll talk more about that because it's more of a gut. I'm picking the Bengals just because of this kind of non-explainable factor of Joe Burrow being clutch, and then the Bills kind of piddle paddling, playing down to competition to give the Bengals a sort of chance in this. I don't agree with a 5-point spread right now. I think a 3 to 4 point spread is fair. Bills have home field. Bengals got injured. But to put 5 points in a game like this, where, I think it's going to be razor close. I think they're just building up to it. I can't really say it's smart money to go the Bills are going to win by basically a touchdown, because that's what 5 points basically is. It's a touchdown. It's a touchdown without an extra point. It's basically 6 points, because there's not a lot of score gummies that are going to get you 5. So take that as it was. Smart betting would say just I take the Bengals with the spread here all day. But I just, heart of hearts, I think the Bengals pull it out.
Well, I'm like you, Cecil. I've been waffling about this one all day because honestly, both these teams could have played better this past week. Both of them could have played a little bit better, and my final decision ended up the Bills to win. I think the offensive line injuries are too much. The good news is Von Miller isn't playing for the Bills. If you're a Bengals fan, that would have been a disaster for the Bengals, especially given Jackson Carman at left tackle not being able to stop speed rushers, and that is something to note. But I think the injuries are going to catch up to him. This is, I think, a team that could have handled 2, as you said, offensive line injuries, because I do think Max Sharping is a starting caliber guard in the league. I really do think he is. Adeniji has kind of been okay, but then you throw in Carmen. Imagine if one of the guys gets hurt during the game just to come out for a couple plays. That could be a real disaster. So I'm not really. We've seen Joe Burrow do incredible things, and he could definitely do it again in this game, especially with the way the Bills have kind of played up and down to their competition. But I do think the offensive line is going to be the difference here. The Bills' offensive line should be a little bit better. Their red zone offense has been kind of bad. They need to make sure that Josh Allen just punches it in with his legs at this point. But I do think the Bills win by a field goal. I think the Bengals can cover that spread. As you said, the spread made no sense to me given how the teams played in their game a couple weeks ago. I think the Bills end up winning, 31-28, something like that. It could be a shootout like last time. The defenses could clamp down. The Bills' defense is, I think, the second scoring defense in the league. They've gotten healthier as the year is going on, besides Von Miller. I really do think they're a very, very good team. But at the end of the day, Joe Burrow has found his way outside of sacks. I'm not putting the possibility out there. He's found his way out of sacks. He's made plays when no one thought he can. His escapability is incredible. The wide receivers are great. To me, this is all about kind of like the first games of the season. Can the offensive line hold up so that Burrow can take those shots downfield? Or is it just going to be Burrow dinking and dunking, and then the running game gets stopped because all the defensive backs creep towards the line of scrimmage anyway? So that's the key to the game, that offensive line holding up. I'm going Bills to win, Bengals with the points. I think either way, it should be an instant classic. Joe Burrow is not going to lose this game big. I can't see that happening. And I just think it will come down to a field goal, and I think that the Bills will get the win. All right, C's, maybe the most heavily anticipated playoff game in a while. If you look at the ticket prices, if you look at what the possible ratings look like, it is the Cowboys and 49ers, the historic rivals of the NFC. They fought a lot in the 80s, 90s, way back in the day. They have some history here. The Cowboys will be traveling to Santa Clara to play the 49ers. 49ers favored by 3.5 right now. Because of the Super Wildcard weekend, this is a very big advantage for the 49ers because they played Saturday, the Cowboys played Monday. It's a 5-day turnaround from the Cowboys to go on the road to Tampa all the way across the country. The 49ers have Brock Purdy. There's a lot of different things going on in this game, Cease.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one of the big things of the whole. Now there's a Monday night game for Wild Card Weekend. Saturday, Sunday made sense. It's just the reality of it. But now you're right. I mean, we're going to run into this every once in a while where now not only is, some team could play on Saturday, one could play on Sunday, it's one day. Now we got a guy who's on a short week versus a guy who's on a long break now playing each other. And it's the away team that has, the short term rest here. So the Cowboys got to go West Coast on short rest against a nasty Niners team. Let's be honest. The defense is nasty right now. The offense is playing really well. Brock Purdy's has been doing well. Will that continue? It's hard to really say. It's a rookie quarterback. It thought, maybe that was the Brock Purdy game last week against Seattle, but then they stepped in and they started, dominating again in the second half. So it's a physical team. It's going to be an emotional game. And I think 49ers are plus on head coach when it comes to in-game decisions. I think they have a little bit better defense right now that's been playing better, and I think they've been playing more consistent and on a better streak going into this game. So I'm going to pick the 49ers to win and cover the small spread. It might end up being a field goal. I can see that too. But I think 3.5 is a fair spread. And I think it's going to be a great one again. But it's the Cowboys. The Cowboys, even if they won that playoff game on Monday. But ultimately, you look to last year, what happened? 49ers were dogs in Dallas and just complete and utter meltdown. They don't get the snap off. Weird decision making cost the Cowboys advancing to the NFC Championship game. And again, they're playing that exact same team in a lot of ways. The only difference is, honestly, the 49ers look better, so the Cowboys. So it's just better talent on both sides. But I think it's going to be played out closely like that. And, there's still the ghosts of the Cowboys past, and the 49ers are playing too hot, and I like their head coach way better than I like Mike McCarthy in this situation.
Cease, I'm going Cowboys. I'm going Cowboys against the
Right,
spread. I'm going Cowboys as the pick. When we've seen these teams at their peak this year, I think the Cowboys' peak is better than the 49ers this year. Based on how they played, the Valleys honestly might still be in favor of the Cowboys. The 49ers have been more consistent, but once the Cowboys lose a game, which they did in Week 18, they usually go on a little stretch. I like Brock Purdy. I think he's been great for them. The first half last week, I really do think he played bad. And I think the Cowboys will be able to take note of that. I think Micah Parsons, we are about a year away from talking about Micah Parsons as maybe the best player in football. He's that good. He showed it on Monday Night Football. Aaron Donald's possibly retiring. Looks like he maybe isn't as much anymore, but he's possibly retiring. He's took it in and out of his bio. Micah Parsons is that good. The Cowboys secondary has gotten a little bit healthier. I expect them to make Brock Purdy beat them, and Brock Purdy's done great so far, but if he's got to make the throws downfield to do that, I don't know if it's going to happen. Maybe Trayvon Diggs gets one of his interceptions because he's a gambler like that. Maybe he gets burned. Either way, I think that defense can do a lot to Brock Purdy. And then that offense for the Cowboys. Dak's thrown a lot of interceptions this year. They decided last night to use Dak's legs, and I think that was like one of the first times all season, which makes sense because it's the playoffs. You get win or go home. When they use his legs, this offense opens up so much. Receivers get more open. The defensive line can't go pin up their ears and go all the way up the field. They got to keep the pocket contained. Dak can run and he can throw. I think that's the difference here. I think Dak's running ability offensively can help them get the win. The 49ers, I don't know. If they had a more consistent quarterback, a more veteran quarterback, I'd probably go 49ers. But at some point, Cecil, this is just an incredible run. It just has to end. I don't know. Like I as much as I'm a believer in Big Cock Brock, and I probably would have picked them against anyone else in the NFC playoffs, including the Eagles. It's got to end, right? Like, I don't know. It's just at some point it has to end.
It's the battle of trends, isn't it? You got the Cowboys battling the trend of bad luck and weird stuff happening in their playoff runs. versus a 49ers with a rookie unknown who's played way better than anybody ever expected. It's the primetime game of the week. It's going to be a heck of a Sunday for us. So I'm excited. There are going to be some great football games on it. Honestly, this is one of the better divisional playoff weekends. And I mean, it's just going to be great overall. I think overall, every game is going to be a good one to watch.
Yeah, I think this is like if you're picking like a perfect football weekend, this is it. Like all the games in this can be really good. We got some divisional games. We got like the up and comer Jaguars. We got the Cowboys 49ers rivalry. We got, as you said, like all that going on. We have the Bengals Bills being replayed here. There's a lot to like about this weekend. I think it's gonna be fun. I think we might get some surprising results. We'll see what all that happens. Cecil, any final thoughts for the week?
I'm excited. I'll see you all down in Cincinnati.
Heck yes. All right, my turn to remind everyone to like and subscribe wherever you're watching us, or listening to us rather, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. Helps us out. Make sure you let us know how we're doing. Make sure you let us know how you like our picks, whether it's Cincinnati Bengals possibly winning or not. For now, thanks for listening. We'll see everyone next week.